role in designing, building, and operationalizing management of scale innovative payment processing platforms like UPI, Bharat Interface for Money, that is BHIM, Immediate Payment Services, IMPS, and India's homegrown card network, RuPay. Welcome, sir. We welcome you on our behalf. To start with, for a successful digital evolution, it is necessary for the end users to have confidence and trust whereas payment solutions are concerned. To maintain insecurity, to maintain the customer's trust, confidence in the system, in the payment system, especially digital payment system, one requires a solid, holistic cybersecurity framework covering technological aspects, covering regulatory aspects and advancements. Especially, looking into Indian context due to factors such as large population, which is not tech savvy, which face challenges when it comes to securing their transactions are concerned, lack of cyber security, risk and knowledge among masses, sudden acceleration in adoption of digital payments. Considering all these significant aspects, what are the typical cyber security strategy which is followed by fintechs in India, sir?
So, obviously, digital payments, when you go for digital, obviously there is a risk, right? And, the risk cannot be fully avoided. Risk can be only mitigated by certain practices, certain tools, and certain skill set. When you look at the fintechs in the digital payment ecosystem, for that matter, NPCI, we consider ourselves also a fintech in the digital payment ecosystem. And traditionally, the investment starts from the prevent technologies, and then it gradually goes back to detect, respond, and then finally to the predict. That's how we have seen the cycle of the investments and within the fintech ecosystem. So predict is prevent is fairly standard. It just goes by the network multi-layer security of firewalls, the web firewalls, the network IPS, and those kind of devices they deploy. When you look at the detect, obviously they put up kind of a mechanism to deal with how do we detect the fraud. So, for example, be that integration with your SIEM tool, which is which is used by the SOC, or the advanced persistent threat softwares. So they deploy all these things so that if there are abnormalities, if there are attacks, the malware or any other things, that can be detected by their infrastructure. And obviously, then gradually it goes back to responding back, would cover back that, how do you deal with when the cyber security attack has, whether how's the DR, BCP, and those frameworks in place, and then they go back to the predict, which is using the data science to see whether they are in a position to predict the attack. So predominantly, we have seen these kind of methods which are used by the fintech, and again, obviously, goes by what is the investment appetite of the particular fintech. But there have been fairly good amount of frameworks in place. RBI has released its security framework. There are many. From a digital payment standpoint, there are few certifications which has been mandated, like PCI DSS, which is the core certification to deal with the payment data. And PCI has been releasing a lot of guidelines. But obviously, it's all good to have, but not sufficient. All these organizations should have these standards, but doesn't mean that if you are certified on these standards, you are fully protected. Obviously, you need to do. The certifications are the base of which any organization must have, and over and above, you have to do a lot many things to be protected in this today's world. Is that? Yeah.
Absolutely agreed. And when we look at the current threat landscape, which is applicable to digital payment space, such as phishing, lack of education, users education, fake app, existence of everyday new fake apps coming on platforms, and also the futuristic threats, that may consist of attack of two-factor authentication, misuse of emerging technologies. Now, basis of study analysis and the threat landscape for digital payments ecosystem, it is described as follows, keeping consideration of current and future technological evolution in realm of digital payments. So the aspect of the current and futuristic technological development, one has to keep in mind looking at the considering the threat landscape also, whereas digital payment system is concerned. Now, recently, Ministry of Information Technology and Electronics also given administrative approval for industry consortium of Cyber Surakshit Bharat, which intended to train CISOs and IT officers of central and state governments, banks, PSUs, etc., to address the cyber security related changes. Now, I mean, I would ask you, sir, that how should fintech should look into cyber security issues and at this stage.
So I think the biggest issue, and I'm sure all of us are aware, that the biggest issue is how do you have a skill set? How do you have the culture of cybersecurity in your organization? And while I look at the many organizations has many ways to deal with this. At NPCI especially, we have a target of trying to get our at least 10% of our NPCI staff uh, kind of have some sort of a certifications back, which are there are many certifications like CI, CSP, and there is a ethical hacking certification. So we believe that the 10% staff and the 10% investments should be made on cybersecurity on a year on year, and I think that is a reasonable approach to look at the cybersecurity. Obviously, these are very much high demand in demand resources, and you have to pay a premium to these guys to kind of have acquired in your organization and continue to retain them, right? But so one is the having the right resources, one is having the right kind of certifications back in your this thing. But one is and one thing which I see definitely, that there is not the while the cybersecurity world is over evolving, the cybersecurity tools which are used in various what I spoke about, predict, detect, prevent, and respond technologies. Those tools have been evolving, right? And I don't see much of the companies building up a truly open source systems, right? So otherwise, what happens is, as you start growing the volumes, as you start growing the digital ecosystem, the cost of them can be fairly dramatic. So I would strongly say that there is a need to create a lot of open source tools and security systems, as at least as far as India is concerned. And I'm sure the government and the certain team would kind of encourage this. This is very, very important to keep the cost back in control, at the same time having the efficacy of having all the protection layers in place.
So when you say that, keeping in mind that you should have 10% reserve for the security aspect, and when we talk about yes, it's very well said that it is important to have incident response team in place. In this age of usage, whereas counter forensic tools are concerned by criminals, the kind of tools they use, the criminals use or the anti-social elements use, the malware authors are spreading more time in research. In researching anti-forensic tools and techniques, especially when it comes to executing in a memory only or a virtual environment detection, to thwart both forensics and malware analysis techniques. So looking at that into aspects, the what incident responses one has to keep in mind. Like, for example, of whether or not to confirm whether or not an incident has occurred, or looking into whether to provide rapid detection and containment, determining and also documentation of scope of incident, minimizing disruption whereas your business is concerned, also educate your senior management or allow criminal and civil actions against the perpetrators. Looking at all these aspects, how do how do this fintech or one should know that you are ready with cybersecurity responses? What is your take on that?
Yeah, and great question, Khushbu. We spoke about skill set, we spoke about tools. what we didn't touch upon is the processes, and I think the processes are also equally very very important, right? And processes is whether you are monitoring all your baseline security hardening systems and those kind of things are in place. The monitoring of your patch management systems, your security patches are fairly up to date on most of your systems. Whether there are routine security tests and those kind of things are happening. So I think it's very very important to look at the processes. I missed this to talk about in the first instant, but I think the processes are something which will help you to deal with the incident response, right? Because the normally what happens is normally you go by the process of elimination if there is an accident, if there is an event back in your system, and if you have processes in place, you'll be able to deal with it. The second important part is obviously in today's world, in the digitally hyper connected world, there are no secrets. So so there is no point in hiding, or there is no point in not telling anybody that if something has gone wrong. In fact, we should embrace the fact that most of us will get attacked, and I and the important is not that. The most important thing in that is when we get attacked, how do we respond is going to be the most important thing. And obviously it's going to be catch and run situation for most of the cybersecurity professionals in the near run. But other advice I could give to the fintechs is they should look into while you look at your first line of defense, second line of defense, third line of defense, you should also have a very strong insurance policy, cyber security insurance policy in place. Obviously it's a one time, it's it saves you from the one mistake, right? But because next year, once you encash that, next year your premiums are going to go up, but at least it helps you to deal with the first instance. So that is also one of the lines of the defense which I'm sure most of the fintechs should avail in the current situations.
I totally agree with you, and especially with data protection norms in place and the kind of sensitive data, whereas the digital the platforms have. Yes, absolutely agree that we should have insurance in place, even if it's a one-time incident. And I mean that's absolutely right that we practically cannot escape from any cyber attack, and none of the companies can escape from cyber attack. It's just you can minimize the effect of the attack. The revolution has picked up the current landscape in terms of cybersecurity or public policy or regulation in India applicable to digital payment space consists of let's say IT Act, Information Technology Act, National Cyber Security Policy of 2013, the RBI regulations which you were talking about, I think, in the start of the talk, and also the master directions for prepaid payment instruments organization. Now,
Yeah.
the speed at which the digital payment system or digital payment space is changing, it's so rapid in India that the introduction of new technology or a mass scale adoption, some of these these regulations may require, let's say, periodical review or changes, or changes whereas your entire payment ecosystem is concerned. It has to be augmented with compliance guidelines. One has to look into the best practices in place. One has to understand the regulations also. So, what are the typical audits or compliance one should have in place, whereas, today's scenario is concerned?
So most of the most of the institutions look at the standard routine scans on a monthly basis, quarterly basis of their infrastructure, both internally and externally. But I think there is a need to do much more than what they are doing right now. There is a need to have the ethical hacking team internally. There is a need to engage with the companies which can actually try doing some hacking exercises back with your teams. So I think those kind of innovative methods are required because see, it's going to be obviously while as you rightly said, there are so many things are happening. We are growing in a exponential pace. Uh, how do you actually understand what are the vulnerabilities you still leave open? And it's better that you find it out by yourself, or your IT audit finds out, or the agency which you engage finds out before the external parties find out, right? So obviously a lot more thinking and innovation is required to keep yourself protected. It's no longer a routine job which you leave it back to the operations or a support divisions, but a lot of thinking is required, and I strongly believe that the risk professional or an infosec professional should keep thinking. It's a solid thinking job that he has to keep thinking that what can go wrong. So CISO of the organization actually has to keep thinking that what can go wrong, and how he can actually keep creating those the crisis situations so that he can assess that how he is, and how his infrastructure is protected in this today's world. So again, being said that, the you spoke about the senior officials in the company. Obviously, anybody running a fintech today, not having the information security knowledge, I don't think they can survive. And obviously, I've been also learning a lot of things about it, and that's why I'm able to talk to you in some language. A lot of credit goes back to our infosec guys who have been helping me to learn a lot of things on this.
Um, um, Absolutely, sir. Whereas, we take India taking giant leap in adoption, taking different modes of, adopting different modes of digital payment system with pillars of safeguarding organizations and citizens' interest, looking into, aspects of organization and also interest of citizen in place. It warrants organization to have a lot of safeguard measures in place, especially when we say that data is the new oil. And with when we talk about fintech and when we talk about data, that's all linked in with each other. So one has to have cybersecurity norms, practices, as rightly said by you, that it has to have all the compliance part, the audit part in place, as rightly said, sir, that one cannot avoid a cyber attack, but the part that you have to have organizational hierarchy, whereas your information security officers are in place to look into the new threats, cyber landscape threats are coming in place. What would be your takeaway for all the organization in place there when it comes to cybersecurity landscape, digital cybersecurity landscape is concerned?
So, and there are two things to this. And you raised a very important point that we have now the draft privacy code also in place. So that also actually comes under the cyber security, that how the privacy of the data is maintained, and how the PII, which is a personally identifiable information, is actually dealt by your organization. And there are three aspects to this, right? The data, one is about data at rest, which means that what do you legacy standpoint store your data, archive your data, how do you keep that protected. Second is the data in motion, right? When the data is exchanged between the two entities, how do you deal with it, how do you encrypt it, how do you ensure that there is no man in the middle attack or those kind of the network hijack. And the third is the data in processing, right? Somebody was putting up the malware in your system, which is able to actually check the processing, the CPU and the memory dumps and those kind of things, right? So these are the three critical issues as far as the data protection is concerned. And obviously the organizations evolve into how do you deal one by one. And first they try to attack the data in rest, then they obviously try to some more encryption mechanisms on data in motion, and finally the data in processing. Obviously it's fairly hard to deal with, but that is one way to look at how do you secure your PI and confidential data information. The second part is about the consumer awareness and literacy, right? Because this is another big challenge which we keep facing back in our in most of the things what we do, because the consumers today do not understand fully the phishing calls, the lottery, and those kind of things. While we see that the RBI, the banks, the fintech ecosystem does quite a lot education on an ongoing basis. In fact, a lot of efforts have been put by the government and the certain teams on the education and awareness. But obviously, these are the open area. There is we'll have to keep on getting there. And I think there is a huge investments required on the the consumer awareness for while dealing with the digital payments. And obviously, while you keep creating that, the if you want to create a very simple system, right, there is a risk trade-off, and you obviously balance with the with the convenience and risk at the same time. So obviously a lot of investments are required in the customer education and awareness, and a lot of entities are doing investments into this, but I think more is required. The last thing, and you spoke about that consumer, right? Consumer, most of the times consumer is using the phone, right? The consumer is using the smartphone to do most of the digital things what he is looking at today, right? Be it using his banking app, or any other app he's looking at. So it's very, very important that, and predominantly we have two types of operating systems now, which is the iOS, second is the Android, and third is the now with the Geo coming in, they are trying to look at iOS as a separate OS. But I think the predominant security of the mobile is very, very important, right? And today, the operating systems, and obviously I'm sure government must be having some coordination and collaboration with these operating system providers, that when you actually, how do you not lose control of your mobile, and that's very, very important, right? How one app is not able to read the what the other app is doing, or what is the other app trying to send and receive the data, right? Normally on the PC, normally the administrative controls are actually taken away by the by us, and normally the users are not allowed to do anything on the computer, while in the computer or the office laptops you can control that, but you can't control that in the uh, in the uh, in the in the mobile phone. So it's very, very important that uh, the the operating system providers in India for the smartphones must keep that, no app should be able to create a malware kind of a situation, who's able to read the memory, who's able to read the other app, especially the financial apps, what they're doing. And the government actually should have a tight collaboration and tight control over this operating system provider, so that the mobile which are used by the Indian citizens are fairly secure. Yeah, Khushbu, does that understand? Do you understand that? Hello, could you get it, Khushbu? What I said?
Khushbu, you're on mute.
Just a moment. I think Khushbu has joined from mobile. Let me fix the connection.
Shiv, you could hear, right? Whatever I said.
Ab- ab- absolutely, sir. Rightly said that. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
You are
Sir,
audible, but
rightly said that.
hello. Khushbu, I think you have joined from
Absolutely, sir.
mobile and PC both. So the voice will echo. So you have to disconnect from one of them maybe.
Yes, sir. So rightly said that, looking at all these aspects, as I would close that, whereas India is concerned, formulation of cybersecurity public policy is to happen. Is to happen in such a way that which fosters innovation, and at the same time protects digital payment ecosystem against ever rising cyber threats. Awareness is the key, as rightly said that when we are moving towards the digital economy, and the way shift has happened, that every user is using mobile phone, from the mobile phone for accessing your all your digital ecosystem. So at the same time, awareness is, yes sir, it's the key, and also at the same time looking at all the different applications, what kind of privacy policy is in place, what kind of security is in place, the way they rightly pointed out, that what access one app has when it comes to your phone is concerned, and what interchangeability when it comes to usage of one app and its connection or its access to the other one. There have been a lot of news, whereas a lot of apps use have an access to your all entire SMS instead of just one. So these kind of things, there has to be a need for formulation of a cybersecurity public policy. At the same time, I would say that as a country, India has taken some concrete steps to secure its digital payment landscape in realm of public policy, and there is more to come. Thank you so much, sir, for joining and enlightening us with the aspects of digital landscape security and threats, and how one has to mitigate, or what all areas one has to look into, whereas today's world is concerned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over to you, Shiv.
So good evening, Dilip sir, and everyone. Before we close today's session in our series of webinar on Reboot FinTech Law, and I would like to talk something about the BSc MSOC services. When we talk about stock exchanges, time scale and accuracy is very important, and with increasing number of sophisticated attacks like DDoS, malware, or you take ransomware, phishing. So the impact is huge, and on the economic and financial institute contribution of the entire ecosystem of the India, and BSc has implemented, as the state of art next gen cybersecurity technology, which includes like niche technologies like UBA, anti-spam, decryption technology, and real-time forensic. And the USP of the project was, the artificial intelligence and machine learning technology, which gained deeper insight by interesting and understanding the extensive data sources. And most of these cyber security technology are very tightly integrated with each other, so that we can get the maximum benefit out of the same. And though BSc NextGen Singh being the forefront of BSc, ensuring the system and information is available with the required integrity and protection to our stakeholders, partners, and users, and it is the key strategic component when we talk about the enterprise cybersecurity. I would also like to highlight that during this COVID pandemic period, the exchange and market was fully operational without any interruption. And while we enable our employees and customers to adopt the new changes, we ensure that the organization information is fully protected and confidentiality and integrity while being available at the same speed. We enable our employees, partners, users to run the exchange with the highest level of protection when we connecting from home or from anywhere with the multi-factor authentication and zero trust-based network security architecture. Also, with the experience we have built, next gen cybersecurity technology, and to pass the such benefit, the knowledge and capability to protect the information asset and doing the business with the years, BSc establishes the MSOC services, which is a member SOC services. And these services we are providing with the marketplace technology, which is a 100% subsidiary of BSc. And with this, BSc will support and provides, the highest level of monitoring and alerting cybersecurity services, next-gen cybersecurity operations centers to the market and brokers. And this will help member brokers to focus on more on the business. Finally, I would like to thank today's about Sri Dilip Asbe ji, MD and CEO for National Payment Corporation of India, Khushbu Jain, the Advocate Supreme Court, for their availability and viable view and inputs on digital payment and its security topic, which we have discussed today. I would also like to thank the team who is behind these curtains to make this event successful. I would also like to thank the participants in today's session. And once again, thank you all and have a pleasant evening. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.